The radio crackled with the enemy commander's ultimatum: surrender or watch your men die. What Lieutenant Colonel Kane whispered back wasn't just defiance. It was a code word that activated the most classified contingency plan in military history. But before we dive into this incredible story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear is a declassified military operation that changed everything we thought we knew about modern warfare. This is the story of 50 American lives hanging in the balance, one impossible decision, and a single word that triggered the most audacious rescue operation ever attempted. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Kane had always been different. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen too much and said too little. His steel-gray eyes missed nothing, and his weathered hands bore scars that told stories he was forbidden to share. Camp Phoenix, Afghanistan, October 15, 2019. The forward operating base sat like a concrete island in a sea of hostility, housing 300 American soldiers in the heart of Taliban territory. But this wasn't just another FOB. Phoenix was the staging ground for Operation Nightfall, a classified mission that had been 18 months in the planning. Kane stood in the Tactical Operations Center, studying satellite feeds of the Khyber Pass. Tomorrow, his team would infiltrate enemy territory to extract Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a CIA asset whose cover had been blown after 3 years of gathering intelligence on terrorist funding networks. But what made this mission critical wasn't just Dr. Mitchell's safety. It was the flash drive she carried, containing financial records that could cripple terrorist operations across 3 continents. "Sir," Captain Rodriguez approached with a fresh intelligence report. "Weather's looking rough for tomorrow. Visibility down to 200 meters in the target zone." Kane nodded without taking his eyes off the monitor. "We proceed as planned. The window closes in 48 hours. After that, Doctor, Mitchell won't be our concern anymore." What Kane didn't say, what he couldn't say to anyone except the 3 people cleared for compartmentalized information, was that Dr. Mitchell wasn't just any CIA asset. She was his sister. The mission briefing took place in a secure trailer, windows blocked, electromagnetic shielding humming quietly in the walls. Kane faced his hand-picked team, 12 of the finest operators from Delta Force Navy SEALs and Army Rangers, men who had followed him through Iraq, Syria, and half a dozen countries that weren't supposed to exist on their service records. Master Sergeant Williams, team leader with 37 confirmed kills. Sergeant First Class Lopez, demolitions expert who could level a building or crack a safe with equal precision. Staff Sergeant Thompson, communications specialist, whose voice could mimic accents from 15 different regions. Each man in that room had been selected not just for their skills, but for their ability to make impossible decisions under pressure. "Gentlemen," Kane began, clicking to the first slide, "Operation Nightfall is a priority extraction. Target is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, CIA, asset compromised 12 hours ago in Jalalabad. Intelligence indicates she's being held in a compound approximately 40 kilometers northeast of our position. The satellite imagery showed a fortress-like structure carved into the mountainside. 3 levels, multiple entry points, and an estimated garrison of 80 to 100 enemy fighters." "Sir," Williams raised his hand, "that's a lot of hostile forces for an extraction mission. Are we expecting reinforcements?" Kane's expression remained neutral. "Negative. This operation is compartmentalized. No air support, no backup teams, no extraction helicopters. We go in quiet, we get the package, we come home." What Kane didn't tell them was that Dr. Mitchell had been captured because someone inside the CIA had leaked her location. Until they identified the mole, every communication channel was compromised. They were truly on their own. After dismissing the team, Kane remained in the secure trailer, staring at a photograph he kept in his classified files. It showed 2 children on a swing set in suburban Virginia, 10-year-old Marcus and 8-year-old Sarah, both grinning at the camera with gap-toothed smiles. Sarah had always been the brilliant one. While Marcus played soldier in the backyard, she was reading college-level chemistry books and building computers from spare parts. When she graduated MIT at 19 with degrees in biochemistry and computer science, everyone assumed she'd become a tech billionaire or win a Nobel Prize. Nobody guessed she'd become one of the CIA's most effective deep-cover operatives. Kane pulled up her operational file on his encrypted tablet. 3 years in Afghanistan, posing as a freelance journalist while tracking terrorist financing through Hawala networks that moved millions of dollars across borders. She'd identified key players, mapped money flows, and uncovered a financial web that connected terrorist cells from Pakistan to Syria. But yesterday, her carefully constructed cover had been blown. Someone had given her real name to the wrong people. And now she was being held in a compound controlled by Malik Hassan, a Taliban commander known for his creative interrogation techniques. Kane's hands trembled slightly as he read the latest intelligence update. Hassan had already begun questioning Dr. Mitchell about American intelligence operations. So far, she'd maintained her cover story, insisting she was just a journalist researching economic development. But Hassan wasn't buying it. The intercept from 12 hours ago made Kane's blood run cold. The American woman knows too much. Tomorrow, we make her talk. Then, we send her head to Kabul as a message. 0300 hours. The team moved through the Afghan mountains like shadows, their night vision goggles turning the landscape into a green-tinted maze of rocks and hidden dangers. Kane led from the front, his GPS showing they were 8 kilometers from the target compound. The plan was surgical. Lopez would create a diversion on the south side while Williams's team breached the main entrance. Thompson would jam communications, and Kane would locate Dr. Mitchell. Simple on paper, potentially suicidal in execution. As they approached the final ridge, Kane raised his fist, signaling a halt. Through his binoculars, he could see the compound sprawling across the mountainside like a concrete cancer. Guard towers at each corner, armed sentries patrolling the walls in the faint glow of generator-powered lights. "Target acquired," Williams whispered into his radio. "Count shows 15 guards on the perimeter, unknown number inside." Kane studied the structure, looking for weaknesses. The compound had been built into the natural rock formation, using the mountain itself as a back wall. Only 2 ways in: the heavily guarded main gate or a narrow service entrance that would require scaling a 20-foot cliff face. "Change of plans," Kane whispered. "Williams, take your team to the main gate, create noise, draw attention. Lopez, I want charges on those guard towers, but don't detonate until my signal. Thompson, you're with me on the service entrance." "Sir," Williams hesitated, "that's a lot of risk for one package." Kane's voice carried finality. "This package is worth the risk." At 0430 hours, Lopez's charges lit up the night sky. The guard towers erupted in balls of fire and concrete debris, sending defenders scrambling for defensive positions. Williams's team hit the main gate with overwhelming firepower, their assault rifles chattering in sustained bursts. While chaos erupted at the front of the compound, Kane and Thompson scaled the rear cliff face using climbing gear and pure determination. Kane's muscles burned as he pulled himself over the rocky ledge, but adrenaline masked the pain. The service entrance was exactly where intelligence had indicated. A steel door set into the mountainside, protected by a single guard who was currently distracted by the explosions echoing from the front of the compound. Thompson moved like a ghost, his knife ending the guard's confusion in seconds. Kane caught the body before it could hit the ground, dragging it into the shadows. "We're in," Kane whispered into his radio, "moving to target location." The compound's interior was a maze of corridors carved directly into the mountain. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls as Kane and Thompson moved through the underground complex. The sound of their team's assault provided perfect cover, but it also meant they were running out of time. According to the intelligence briefing, high-value prisoners were held on the lowest level in a section of the compound that had once been a natural cave system. Kane followed his mental map, Thompson covering their six as they descended through increasingly narrow passages. The holding cells were exactly where intelligence had indicated, but what Kane found there changed everything. Dr. Sarah Mitchell sat in a concrete cell, her journalist cover completely blown. But she wasn't alone. Chained to the wall beside her was Colonel James Harrison, a Marine intelligence officer who had been missing in action for 6 months. And in the cell across the corridor was Major Lisa Chen, an Army linguist whose disappearance had been classified so deeply that most people believed she'd been transferred to a desk job. Marcus? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in the 3 days since her capture, her face bearing fresh bruises that made Kane's jaw clench with rage. "We're getting you out," Kane said, working on her restraints with bolt cutters. But his mind was racing. 3 high-value American prisoners in the same location wasn't coincidence. This was a trap. "Marcus, listen to me." Sarah grabbed his arm with desperate strength. "Hassan isn't just Taliban. He's working with someone inside our government, someone who's been feeding him intelligence for months." Thompson appeared at Kane's shoulder, his face grim. "Sir, we've got problems. I'm picking up radio chatter suggesting they knew we were coming." Kane's blood went cold. "How long before they seal the exits?" "Maybe 10 minutes. The assault team is already taking heavy fire." Kane made rapid calculations. 3 prisoners, narrow corridors, and enemy forces converging on their position. Even if they could move fast, they'd never make it out through conventional extraction routes. That's when Kane remembered Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus was a contingency plan so classified that only 7 people in the entire government knew it existed. Developed after the failed Iranian hostage rescue in 1980, it was designed for exactly this scenario, a high-value extraction gone wrong, with American lives hanging in the balance and no conventional rescue possible. Kane pulled out his encrypted satellite communicator, a device he'd hoped never to use. The code word he was about to transmit would trigger a series of events that couldn't be undone. Within minutes, assets would move into position for an operation that officially didn't exist. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, recognizing the look in her brother's eyes. "Something I swore I'd never do," Kane replied, entering his authorization codes. The device's screen flickered to life. "Lazarus Protocol authorization required. Warning! Activation will initiate autonomous military response. Confirm." Kane's finger hovered over the confirmation button. Project Lazarus wasn't just a rescue operation. It was a military response so overwhelming that it would effectively constitute an act of war. Autonomous drone squadrons would saturate the area with precision strikes, turning a 30-kilometer radius into a kill zone where nothing larger than a rabbit could survive. The sound of boots echoing down the corridor made the decision for him. Kane pressed confirm. "Lazarus Protocol activated. Autonomous response commencing. ETA to target 47 minutes. Thompson's eyes went wide as he recognized the device. "Sir, did you just authorize—" "I authorized whatever it takes to get these people home," Kane cut him off. Hassan's forces reached the holding area faster than Kane had anticipated. The narrow corridors that had been their protection now became a trap as enemy fighters poured down the passages like water through a funnel. "Colonel Kane!" Hassan's voice echoed through a bullhorn, speaking perfect English with a slight accent. "I know you're down there. I also know who you really are." Kane exchanged glances with Thompson. Hassan, knowing his rank, wasn't surprising. Any competent intelligence operation would have identified the assault team leader. But the way he'd said, "who you really are," suggested something deeper. You're the architect of the Kandahar raids, Hassan continued. 3 years ago, you personally killed my brother during Operation Steel Thunder. Today, we settle that debt. Kane's mind flashed back to Kandahar. He remembered the firefight, remembered a Taliban commander who had used human shields to protect himself. Kane's shot had been clean, necessary, but apparently not forgotten. I have something you want, Hassan called out. But more importantly, you have something I want. An even trade. Your life for the 3 Americans. Sarah grabbed Kane's arm. Don't even think about it. But Kane was already moving toward the cell door. The mathematics of the situation were simple. 3 American lives versus 1. As a military officer, the equation was clear. Sir, Thompson blocked his path, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't have 47 minutes to wait for Lazarus, Kane replied. Those drones will level this place, but not before Hassan executes all 3 prisoners. Kane stepped into the corridor, hands raised but not empty. In his right hand, he held the encrypted communicator, the only device that could abort Project Lazarus once activated. Hassan, he called out, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Kane, United States Army. I'm offering myself in exchange for the 3 American prisoners. The Taliban commander emerged from the shadows, flanked by 6 fighters with assault rifles trained on Kane. Hassan was younger than expected, maybe 35, with intelligent eyes that suggested he was far more dangerous than the typical mountain fighter. The famous Colonel Kane, Hassan smiled coldly. The man who thinks American technology makes him untouchable. Kane held up the communicator. In 42 minutes, this location will be hit by autonomous strike drones, Hellfire missiles that don't care about negotiations or prisoner exchanges. Unless I abort the mission, everyone in a 30-kilometer radius dies. Hassan's expression shifted to something resembling respect. You activated Lazarus Protocol for 3 CIA assets. How wonderfully American, using a nuclear option for a simple prisoner exchange. The exchange is simple, Kane said. Me for them. You get your revenge, they go home. But Hassan had other plans. No, Colonel. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to abort your Lazarus Protocol. Then you're going to watch me execute all 3 prisoners before I kill you. Because the real prize isn't revenge. It's demonstrating that American military power is meaningless when your own government abandons you. Kane's blood ran cold as Hassan produced a tablet showing intercepted CIA communications. The messages were clear. Operation Nightfall had been deemed expendable by higher command. No rescue was coming because officially the mission had never been authorized. Your government sold you out before you even arrived, Hassan laughed. Did you really think they'd risk international incident for 3 burned assets? That's when Kane smiled, a cold expression that made Hassan step backward involuntarily. You made one mistake, Kane said quietly. You assumed Lazarus Protocol requires government authorization. Hassan's confident expression began to crack. What do you mean? Project Lazarus isn't controlled by politicians or bureaucrats, Kane continued, his voice carrying deadly certainty. It's an autonomous system designed by soldiers for soldiers. Once activated, it can only be stopped by the officer who triggered it, and only if that officer is alive and conscious. The implication hit Hassan like a physical blow. Killing Kane wouldn't stop the incoming drones, it would guarantee them. You're bluffing, Hassan said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Kane held up the communicator, showing a countdown timer, 38 minutes, 22 seconds. In 38 minutes, you can test your theory about American resolve. Or you can let us walk out of here right now. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Hassan's fighters shifted nervously, understanding enough English to realize their commander was trapped between equally unacceptable options. Then the communicator in Kane's hand chirped with an incoming message. Lazarus assets detected, 18 MQ-9 Reaper drones, Hellfire. Payload, 72 missiles, target confirmation, autonomous. Hassan read the screen over Kane's shoulder, his face going pale. 18 drones? Project Lazarus was designed to handle entire terrorist training camps, Kane said conversationally. This compound barely qualifies as target practice. Hassan's radio crackled with panicked voices from his sentries. They'd spotted the distinctive silhouettes of military drones circling high overhead, invisible to the naked eye but unmistakable on radar. "Release them," Hassan said quietly to his men. "All of them." As the restraints fell away, Sarah stumbled into her brother's arms. Colonel Harrison and Major Chen moved on unsteady legs, but they were alive. "The communicator," Hassan demanded. Kane held up the device, finger poised over the abort command. "You have 60 seconds to clear your people from the compound. After that, Lazarus considers everyone here a legitimate target." Hassan and his fighters ran for the exits like their lives depended on it. Because they did. 37 minutes later, Kane's team emerged into the Afghan dawn with all 3 prisoners recovered and 0 American casualties. The communicator showed a simple message: Lazarus protocol aborted, assets returning to base. But as their extraction helicopter lifted off, Sarah leaned close to her brother's ear. "Marcus, there's something you need to know about the mole in the CIA. Hassan showed me files, photographs. The leak isn't coming from Langley." Kane's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice was barely audible over the rotor noise. "It's coming from inside your own command structure. Someone at Camp Phoenix has been feeding Hassan intelligence for months, and tomorrow they're planning to activate their own Lazarus protocol against American forces." Kane stared at his sister, realizing that Operation Nightfall hadn't ended. It had only revealed the first layer of a conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything they'd sworn to protect. The radio crackled one final time with a message that would haunt Kane for weeks. "Enjoy your victory, Colonel. Tomorrow, we'll see how Lazarus Protocol works when we're the ones pulling the trigger. Don't forget to subscribe to Beneath Word Stories for more incredible tales of courage, sacrifice, and the hidden operations that shape our world." What did you think of Kane's impossible choice? Would you have activated Lazarus Protocol? Let us know in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from today.